People often ask me, why should we care about coral reefs? Corals build one of the most important ecosystems in the ocean. They are animals, but they look like rocks because they make a skeleton underneath themselves and they leave it behind as they grow up toward the sun. And then that creates homes for sponges and clams and snails. And those smaller organisms are what feed the bigger fish and the bigger fish. So without the corals, you slowly lose the ability to support the entire pyramid. People often don't realize that they help protect the shorelines from waves, from big storms, and from hurricanes. We know that corals can live for a long time, but what's particularly interesting about that is that they're living in the blazing hot sun near the equator for hundreds and hundreds of years. So now scientists are looking into how a coral manages to repair its DNA when it's sitting in the blazing sun for decades and decades, and hopefully we can understand how to prevent the mutations that eventually lead to cancer in humans. Corals live with algae in their tissues. It would be as if you had lettuce growing under your skin and you were able to use the calories that lettuce was making without eating any food. When a coral bleaches, the balance between that algae and that host coral sometimes goes off. The coral spits out those symbiotic partners, and it's very difficult for them to survive because they've lost their main source of food. Unfortunately, anywhere you have humans, corals tend to suffer, and that's because all of the activities that we do on land, things like building, things like discharging sewage, things like agriculture, those all affect the ocean. A country that's doing a very strong job of conservation is Palau. They saw a massive coral bleaching event in 1998 and realized that they were at risk from the changes occurring globally. So they started putting in place fisheries regulations, a marine park. They eventually put in a shark sanctuary, and now they have 80% of their water protected from any kind of fishing or mining. What we know now is that the sort of days of hoping and wishing for those coral reefs to survive is over. This treasure will help us get through the next era of development as long as we're just kind enough and wise enough to be sure that they all come along together with us into the future, safely and protected.
What is coral? From a distance, it looks like mossy rock or bone. Up close, it appears to be covered in tiny flowers. But each of those flowers are actually an animal, a coral polyp. A round body topped with a mouth surrounded by a ring of tentacles. Inside, there is a simple gut lined with long threads of tissue that help digest the coral's food. Reef-building corals lay down a skeleton of calcium carbonate, essentially rock. Corals are colonial, budding off new polyps, each one connected to the one next to it, and genetically identical, forming a living veneer. Corals are hunters. Their tentacles are lined with millions of stinging cells that kill what they catch. They are super weapons on a micro scale. But in the clear, warm water where corals live, there's not much to catch. So, how do corals find food? The secret to their success is in their relationship with a plant. Living right inside their cells are tiny algae, plant cells known as symbionts. Like all plants, they photosynthesize. Using energy from the sun, they produce sugars, enough food for themselves and for their coral host. It's extraordinary biology, an almost alien relationship where the algae gets a home and the coral gets up to 90% of its food. And together, they build the reef. But because of warming oceans, there's been a massive breakdown in this crucial relationship. And the reef as we know it is disappearing. Fast. If science can help the reef survive, the answer may lay halfway around the world. On a tiny Hawaiian island, scientists are trying to understand the connection between coral and the plant inside them, and use that knowledge to speed up evolution.
I'm at the Hawaiian Institute of Marine Biology, where Ruth Gates does her research. It's an ideal facility. Over here, you can grow corals, and over here, you can grow hammerhead sharks. But what's really amazing is that we are right on a coral reef.
Dr. Ruth Gates has been studying corals for over 25 years, inspired by a love of the reef.
The coral reef is a vibrant natural city. It's got texture, it's got colour, it's got movement. You're surrounded by extraordinary things.
Ruth and her team are investigating the mechanism of coral bleaching. What happens when temperatures get too high for coral?
Hi.
Great to see you.
Welcome.
What a beautiful lab.
Welcome.
This special microscope lets Ruth and biologist Amy Eggers raise the water temperature to simulate warming oceans and observe what happens to living coral as it bleaches.
This is the only microscope in the world that's equipped to simulate future ocean conditions that allows you to visualize a living organism.
So you can really see how it's a colonial animal here, can't you? All of those polyps.
The number of algal cells, or symbionts, living throughout the coral is staggering. Around 1 million in every square centimetre, an area the size of your thumbnail. Coral builds the reef structure that supports so much other life, so it's called a foundation species.
If coral is a foundation species, then the symbionts themselves are clearly a keystone species, because the coral cannot survive without them, and if the coral doesn't survive, the reef will not survive.
When ocean temperatures get too high, the coral rejects the algae living inside it, in the process called bleaching.
Coral bleaching is really the breakdown of this relationship between these plant cells and the animal itself.
The plant cells react to high temperature, and instead of creating food, they produce an irritant to the coral.
When the animal gets stressed, somehow they break the connection and the plant cells are ousted from the system.
Some corals belch clouds of their life-giving algal cells. Others release them over days in tiny clumps.
What you see as the coral goes pale is just the clear tissues of the animal overlaying the white skeleton.
Bleached but still living coral can clearly be seen under powerful magnification.
It's become a ghost coral, hasn't it? Like, you know, all the structure is still there, but none of the colour, none of the vibrancy.
Yeah.
That is a spooky image.
When carbon dioxide is released by humans, around 30 to 40% is taken up by the oceans. The rest either remains in the atmosphere or is absorbed by the land. This causes oceans, which are alkaline, to become more acidic over time. Since the start of the industrial era, the overall pH of the world's oceans has fallen from 8.2 to 8.1. As oceans become more acidic, the number of hydrogen ions in seawater increases. Some types of coral have a hard outer skeleton made out of a compound called calcium carbonate. This compound is made of calcium ions and carbonate ions. Ocean acidification causes the amount of calcium carbonate in seawater to fall. This is because some of the carbonate ions that normally pair with calcium to form calcium carbonate instead pair with hydrogen to form bicarbonate. With less calcium carbonate around, corals find it more difficult to rebuild and grow their skeletons. This increases the chances of coral death.
We all bear responsibility to the place that we call Honua, Mother Earth, because we are all a part of it, not separate, not better than the other. We're all in part, as the Kumulipo say, we come from the same sources. So that to me is a responsibility. I think being in the Sanctuary Advisory Council, that helps me to impart that and hope that those that follow will take on those kinds of responsibility and continue to bridge it generationally so that it's never forgotten.
The National Marine Sanctuary System is about 620,000 square miles of the ocean and Great Lakes. It's protected for the resources that are there, but also what those resources mean to a community. And one of the interesting things about the Office of National Marine Sanctuaries is that we're protecting a place not only for species and habitats, but also so that we can educate our youth and educate the public at large about what the ocean means and about what these individual places mean. It's also an opportunity for us to make sure that the protections we put in place are allowing a community to thrive and bringing together the voices and the individuals and the collective groups of people who matter to this place and that matter to keep that place healthy for the long haul.
I think one of the things I've been really impressed by with the sanctuary is that sitting on the advisory council, I see that they receive input and feedback from a variety of different stakeholder groups. And there are a lot of different voices in that room, a lot of different perspectives in the room, and the sanctuary staff are hearing all of those perspectives when they're making decisions about how to manage the sanctuary.
And the council, like all the councils, provides this unique forum for all of the stakeholders, all the partners who are participating in the Marine Sanctuary Program to come together regularly to have really challenging discussions about the current issues, to identify future issues, and to work as a set of partners to help achieve the goals of the sanctuary.
It's really never been more important for us to ensure that we have the right level of protection in place and at the same time recognize the community's needs and what level of importance the sanctuary represents for that community.
I know it's something that I feel proud to be a part of, to be serving on the Sanctuary Advisory Council. Being a fisherman and representing the voice of fishing guides at the Sanctuary Advisory Council level, I think we're a big part of the partnership that it's going to take to protect these important places.
I would really encourage people to come and be part of it. It's the best way to find a solution that works for everyone, is to come and respectfully listen and then contribute so that they can be part of the solution.
So what should your role be? Come help us, right? Be a part of these communities, be a part of the decisions that we're trying to make here to protect these places for my children, for your children, for future generations. You can do that in numerous ways, right? You can step in and be a member of our advisory councils, and you can come sit at the table and provide input and be a liaison to your community to say, what should the Office of National Marine Sanctuaries know about this place, why it matters to you, and what we should do to protect it to the future. With you, and with you coming in and being a part of this with us, we'll make better informed decisions, but we're also going to be growing the capacity we have there and being able to make even more of a difference in this place and a place that's important to you.
Stop.